You already know how to graph a polynomial, but there's some characteristics that you may not know about. So we're going to be looking at the characteristics of polynomial graphs. This is just kind of in general when we're looking at any type of function. What are the things that you should be looking for? What is the specific terminology? All of that good stuff. So we're just going to start general here. So we've got a graph here. So looking at this, we can see that it's going on forever in the negative direction as well as in the positive direction. This means that I do not have an absolute maximum. So an absolute maximum is the highest value overall. An absolute minimum is the lowest value overall. Those are pretty self-explanatory. But looking at this specific graph, we have what's called a relative maximum and a relative minimum. So a relative max, this is within a specific, what they like to call neighborhood, in which there is a low or a highest point. So a highest value within the neighborhood. So in our case, this point here would be a relative max. So with that said, we can kind of assume, or we know, this one here is going to be our relative min. We're actually just going to slide this over. It's kind of in my way. Relative min is going to be lowest value within the neighborhood. Okay, so we don't have any absolute max or an absolute min. We do have a relative max and a relative min though, based on this picture. If we have absolute max and min, these are what we call our extreme values or extrema. Relative, and then the relative ones are your relative extrema. I'm not too worried about that. With this, you also have what are called roots. We've talked about roots before. These are roots or zeros, depending on how you would like to look at that. These are values in which the function, where the y value equals 0. So crosses the x-axis or where the value of f of x equals 0. Okay, so in this case we've got 3. We've already talked about 0 and odd or 0 functions. Even in odd functions, we've talked about what those should look like and what they should, about approximately how many roots they should have. But just as a refresher here, if you have an even, it's going in the same direction. Both ends are approaching the same direction. So this would be like x squared, x to the fourth. Kind of have an idea there. Okay, what is meant by even? So it could look like this. But both of the arrows are going in the same direction. An odd function, both ends are going in opposite directions. So x cubed, x to the fifth, dot, dot, dot. Even though 1 is an odd, its ends are still going in the same direction. It might not have a curve, it just has a linear aspect to it, but that's okay. And the other thing is they're wanting you to talk about where intervals are increasing or decreasing. So that's information. You just look at your graph and you can find those values. We'll talk more in class about how you can find different values and how you could find like the zeros or find the relative max and min. Some of this we've already done before, but we'll talk about that more in class.